Hola amigos, ¿cómo están? Bienvenidos a otro episodio de TECH23. Today is a very special day, not being biased or anything, pero estamos representando a la bandera de México. Tenemos a nuestro guest, Mónica Talan, de una de mis favoritas ciudades de México, y ella es una tech founder de una compañía que es en blockchain, pero I also think on edtech as well, because that's a lot of what you're doing. So, Mónica, muchas gracias por estar aquí con nosotros hoy. Can you tell us a little bit about what's like your kind of pitch, your 30-second pitch about CryptoConexión?
Yes, okay. CryptoConexión is a Web2 website that helps to be the bridge for Spanish speakers to Web3, and that includes learning about crypto, blockchain, Web3, the Metaverse, and so learning about the future of technology, right? I think we talk about it's the future, but really it's the present, and we just want to be sure Latinos aren't part of that.
Thank you so much, because yo conocí a Mónica actually at a pitch competition, and when you started speaking like Spanish in some of your presentation and saying like quiero que los Latinos sepan de este mundo, I just fell in love with it, because I agree, we do not have to be left behind, another industry again. So what you're doing is like amazing. Actually, ¿nos puedes contar de qué parte de México eres?
Soy de la Ciudad de México.
Okay, so I brought a special shirt.
Me encanta.
La agarré right outside the Lucha Libre site, and it's Pedro Infante with his Rocky Balboa, which is totally like copyright.
Claro, sí, pero bueno.
Yeah. But yeah, I wanted to wear my favorite Lucha Libre shirt that I do have to do it. Yeah, so La Ciudad de Mexico is one of our favorite like cities. But let's go back a little bit to CryptoConexión. So, okay, what is the platform like, and what all am I gonna learn, or cómo empezó?
Bueno, CryptoConexión comienza como un proyecto de pasión. I wanted people like me who didn't have a financial or technology background to learn about Web3, and specifically Spanish speakers. I had worked at Univision, I had worked in Latin America for many projects, including an EdTech project. And when I started to do research, no había nada en español. Y yo, no es posible. O era muy técnico, o era mucho de que te vas a hacer rico en una semana. Y yo, no. Y entonces dije, ¿por qué? Y entonces le dije a una amiga, deberíamos a ver, ¿quién lo puede hacer? Y ya, pues haz lo tuyo. You're right, I can do it. So for us, it's really a way for people to start to enter this world in a way that is comfortable, that they feel like it's content that's easy to understand, that's not intimidating. We have a lot of written content. Somebody called us the Google in Spanish for crypto.
The Google in Spanish for crypto. Okay, I like that.
And then we have a book, we have a podcast, we have a YouTube channel. Okay. And so it's however you want to start to learn about this world, we give you the different options.
I have a couple questions, because this world is very new. So even me, that I'm also a Latino in tech, there's so much and it's changing every day. So I feel like whatever I learned was like Web3 like 6 months ago or something like that.
Or Web 2.5.
Yeah, ¿ves? New terms. So, okay, para los que están ahorita viendo que quizás no conocen de este mundo, which is a lot, which is why you exist in the first place. Okay, walk us through some of the more popular terms y como que significan para la comunidad hispana, like a basic 101 of what some of these
Okay, we'll start with the basic, and it really is where the foundation, which is decentralization, and that means that nobody really owns anything completely, right? So it's not owned by a government or by a company. It's owned by different entities, different nodes, different computer servers around the world. So instead of having one centralized thing, you have it spread out, and like that, nobody can control it. Gotcha. And so decentralization is a foundation for blockchain, for crypto, for even the Metaverse and Web3. And why that's important is because that means that you as an individual are going to be able to own your own assets. So the next term I'll talk about is Web3. So Web 1 was when you could only read content. Web 2 was when you could, what we're living now, when you can interact with that content. So social media, all of that.
And that's us like writing our content, uploading pictures, posting.
And even commenting. Remember when you first could comment on articles? You guys are too young. That was pretty like, oh wow, I can actually now interact with this. Or like Wikipedia was born then, right? Where you could add content. Web 3 is when you're going to be able to own that content. So instead of a company owning it, you're going to own it. And a lot of the NFTs, which we hear about, which are non-fungible tokens. Those are things that you as an individual will own. You own your own identity, and you will own your own digital assets like cryptocurrencies.
Gotcha. Okay, so on the ownership part, because I think that's where it gets a little bit confusing. Like, what exactly do I own? I think at the beginning of COVID, NFTs like really, well, from my point of view, because the things probably going on for several years before. From my point of view, they really took off. Especially, I think it was the Bored Ape Club or whatever the name exactly was. All I saw, and a lot of people were like, that's a photo. Like, how is that thing? So can you actually give me the educated answer?
Yes, of course. So an NFT is a non-fungible token. And what it is, it's a digital image or asset that is on blockchain. And behind it, it has a smart contract. So each one of those images is unique. There's no other. It can't be replaced. And that's why each one has a different price. But within that smart contract, there's different terms. And so, for example, for artists, you can put how much in royalties you'll get every time that piece is sold. So if you have a painting right now and I sell it to you and then you sell it to somebody else, I don't make any money.
Something interesting. Okay, yo soy Frida Kahlo.
Sí.
¿Cómo me explicarías que puedo usar un NFT?
Mira, entonces tu cuadro lo ponemos en blockchain como una imagen digital, pero más que nada para tener el contrato, el smart contract.
Do you take a very high-res resolution of my painted artwork, or did I have to initially like paint it on a digital platform?
You can do both. You can make it like it can be a physical asset that then you take into the digital world, or it can be created. You see artists that do both, so it depends on what you want to do. And then the contract defines the terms. So Frida, if you want to get 20% of royalties every time that piece is resold, you can put that in that contract. And so every time somebody sells it, imagine that artist gets 20% or 10%. So it depends on the artist. It also provides what rights you have as an owner. So do you have the right to then reproduce that and sell it?
Para que yo como Frida no haga más copias de ese same one.
Right. So does the artist keep it? Do I keep it? Who owns it? And it could be that the artist keeps it and you don't have IP rights, or the other. There's a great Venezolana. Her name is Gigi. She has a collection called CryptoTech Women, and her NFTs, she gives you all of the IP. So when I buy the NFT, I can use that on bags, I can use it as my brand, etc. Because now I have the rights.
Si tú estás como Frida otra vez, si tú estás comprando mi arte, lo compro, hago una, my self-portrait, one of her most famous works. Si tú lo compras, where do you display it, or what is the benefit of you like having it? How do you show it to your friends? Like, look what I just bought.
Well, one, you can have it in your wallet, but then you can use it and replicate it anywhere else. And again, you can sell the rights. Obviously, as you said, anybody can take that image and put it anywhere, and I'm sure in the future there will be lawsuits saying, well, I own the rights. But that's not the point. The point is that you, by owning it, you can resell it, you can do certain things that maybe you weren't able to do before, but you can print it out and create something for your house. You can use it for your digital assets, or you can create your own gallery in the Metaverse.
That's what I'm excited about.
And then show all of the NFTs you bought. So you have your own NFT gallery because you're a collector, and now you have all of these.
That's awesome. Oye, ahí nos llegó nuestra agua fresca. Tú ordenaste una que de...
Una de horchata.
Horchata, okay. Do you know how to make your own horchata?
No. Yo no cocino. I admit it.
Thank you. Bueno, a mí me trajeron una de Jamaica. I remember, like, for years I had heard the term hibiscus tea. Y pues, quién sabe qué es el hibiscus tea, right? Y una vez me acuerdo que estábamos con mi esposa and I was like, wait, it's Jamaica. Like this whole time, hibiscus tea is agua de Jamaica. I've been drinking that since I was a kid. But nunca lo había. And I remember when I told my mom, I was like, Mom, ¿sabes cómo se dice agua de Jamaica en inglés? Jamaication, like you never know. Actually, was like, it's hibiscus. And she herself, she's like, I've heard that word before. I was like, yeah.
Les voy a contar mi historia favorita de idioma. Una vez estaba yo en Nueva York y llego a la tienda y le digo a la de CBS, I'm looking for a Big Bag Peru. What? Y yo, Big Bag Peru. She's like, what? And I was like, and a Dominican woman comes out, Big Peru. Y yo, that's how you say it in English. I never knew.
Everybody has those stories. So, yo creo la que me impactó más fue la de, ordenaste una taquería y ordenas tacos de bistec. Did you know the origin of bistec?
No.
it's our parents having tried to say beef steak.
See, we learn every day.
Like, it's one of those moments that I'm just like, are you serious? Like, I've been saying this the whole time, but like, it got adopted. So you're just like, no, pues son tacos de beefsteak. And it's like, no, people just trying to say beef steak. And I was like, that makes sense to me now.
That does make a lot of sense.
Y pues todas las palabras, troca, truck, and like, all the different words. My dad actually works in like the oil and gas industry and the construction. And there's been so many terms that he's like tried to say, and I like love him for it because it's like you trying to perform it. But like there's a job called pipe fitter. That's the actual term, and it makes sense. You fit pipes in the oil and gas. But the way they said it is like, es un pipe fitter, es un pipe fitter, and I just assumed that's what it was called. And then when I actually saw it like in a red document, I was just like, bro. I was like, I love you. So we've had a lot of education moments with our parents, but I love because that's part of our culture, and I think it will continue to be. Y pues estoy emocionado from the next word that I learned that I've been saying, like, adjusted the whole time.
Y ahora vamos a verlo con Web3, con blockchain, y cómo la gente empieza a hablar y a crearlo en su propio idioma, ¿no? Porque todo es en inglés.
Sí, ya. Y creo que ahí nos va a llegar un poquito más comidita. Thank you. Oh, that's hers, yeah. Yeah. By the way, we're in Austin, Texas. I don't think I said that. Pero andamos en Austin ahorita. Le hicimos un field trip desde Houston. Bueno, amigos, estamos hoy en un restaurante mexicano. Se llama Lichas. So shout out to Lichas. This is a really cool spot that looks like we're in somebody's backyard. Bueno, nos cuentas un poquito de la comida, de lo que ordenamos. Which one of these is your favorite? Tenemos quesadillas y tenemos guaraches.
Sí, bueno, me encanta el guarache. Y es un guarache que yo no he comido de mole, de pollo. Sí. Entonces no me ha tocado uno de mole. Va a saber rico. Y después tenemos las quesadillas que también me encantan. Obvio por el queso, pero también creo que una es de calabaza.
Sí, calabaza es esta y la de hibiscus. That's actually pretty new. Ella hacen acá quesadillas de Jamaica.
Eso es algo nuevo para nosotros.
Sí. Okay, so me encanta que estabas hablando lo del lenguaje y por qué es tan importante. Some of my favorite conversations are when I can do what we're doing right now, which is like speaking Spanglish and jumping back and forth. So, dinos el impacto que has visto, no sé, unas historias de gente que te ha dicho muchas gracias porque lo estás haciendo CryptoConexión en español.
Sabes que durante este año nosotros lanzamos CryptoConexión el 31 de octubre del 2021, no porque era Halloween, pero es la fecha que se publica el white paper de Bitcoin, que es cuando, y eso fue en el 2008, que explica qué va a ser y por qué nace ese proyecto. Entonces,
if I could go back in time, it would be to
to that date. So I started to study. I took MIT courses to learn about crypto, blockchain, and then I was like, what's in Spanish? Because I did find a lot of content. It's hard to curate, but there is a lot of content in English. And in Spanish, I found either it was technical, it was very industry focused, so news, which if you don't understand crypto, you're not going to understand it. And then I found that the third was a lot of scams, as I mentioned, like people trying to tell you we're going to become rich. So I wanted to create something that was unbiased, that was truly educational, and it's been great when we go in we've worked with several communities in Latin America. There's one called Herdao LatAm that has now more than 600 women that are trying to learn and really build in blockchain. And so we work with them, and they helped us develop the course, and their feedback was phenomenal because they're like, oh my god, now I understand the foundation, the concepts, etc. And so we've had great feedback, like I said, from the different communities in different parts of Latin America. We work with communities in Peru, in Argentina, in Colombia, and so it's been great feedback, but more than anything, really rewarding to see that people are using it as a resource.
Yeah. ¿Cuáles son las comunidades like that you've seen? Which country right now is like the most active on like Web3 and that? Because then I'm curious, like, you know, why is it? And like, ¿cuáles son las que quizás ahorita they're kind of quiet on it? Or maybe their platforms just aren't getting the right exposure, because we'd love to, you know, also highlight that para nuestra comunidad. Y me encanta pues el lenguaje, porque sí, para nosotros el contenido que existía, like the reason why TECH23 exists in the first place is that the content that we did see around tech was like kind of boring even. So like I went through your website and everything's good. Like de los colores y todo le habla a la gente latinoamericana. So I really appreciate, like, I'm sure that took a lot of time to go through it. So what are some of the really active countries in Latin America?
What's interesting about Latin America is that you see different uses and case studies based on the country, right? So Argentina and Venezuela, you're seeing people really focus on crypto as a currency because of the instability of their own currency. And there's a currency called stable coins. So those coins or cryptos are tied to an existing asset such as the US dollar. So one of the most used is called USDC because it's pegged to the US dollar. And so a lot of people in Argentina and in Venezuela are using that. In Brazil, you're seeing, which Brazil is Portuguese, and we're trying to now start some stuff in Portuguese.
Obrigado.
Parabéns is my favorite word. Parabéns, which means congratulations.
¿Cómo es?
Parabéns.
Parabéns. Okay.
But I don't speak Portuguese.
Okay. Bom dia. That's like I know like 2-3 words. Pero Brasil, vamos para allá vamos y vamos a aprender más portugués.
So Brazil, you have a ton of innovation. You have a lot of adoption, but you have a lot of the DeFi, which is the financial companies focused on the decentralized world like blockchain and crypto. So you have a lot of innovation and projects being born in Brazil. Colombia and Mexico, you're seeing two different use cases. One is innovation, new projects being born, but the other one is people sending money in crypto. So you're seeing more remittances in Colombia and Mexico. And then one of the countries hardly anybody talks about, but we see a ton of activity, innovation, and enthusiasm is Peru. Peru is one of the countries that actually surprises me all the time because that's one of the countries that gives us the most traffic to the website, and you see a lot of activity. Our top countries are Colombia, Mexico, Argentina, Venezuela, Peru, and the US.
I just learned that los países que están un poquito unstable, they use it like when the government goes down. Well, here you have this solution that you can do. Once you're more stable, you can now focus on innovation, NFT, like more of the other stuff. Y pues ahorita lo que dices también de para mandar dinero a México, like yo no sé cuántos crecieron, pero mi mamá siempre me llevaba it was in a carnicería. I don't know if everybody knows the Michoacanas, but shout out to Michoacana. But it was las carnicerías porque tenían un centro como de comercio chiquito y de ahí iba mi mamá. I think it was Western MoneyGram or one of those. Yeah, one of those. Y pues sí, era la tradición. Mandas dinero, se lo mandas a México, les das un código, and this whole process. And I know that they probably took a cut.
Well, I want to talk about remittances because I think it's one of the opportunities to really bring value, right? And I think one of the things we talk a lot about is that, you know, in the US, you see a lot of people investing in crypto because they want to make money, right? It's more for that. Well, while in Latin America, está rico. While in Latin America, you're seeing more crypto being used as it should be, right? As a currency, either for saving, for the stability, or for remittances. And so for remittances, you address three things with crypto. One is what you said, right? You have to go to the carniceria, but I mean, it's not that safe, especially if you have to do it at certain times or depending where the location could be. I'm not saying that carniceria is not safe, but if people know that's where you're going to go take money, there's more probability that you can be the victim of crime, right? The second one is that it takes time for that person to get the money, right? It's not immediate. And the third one is the commission. So all these companies do take a commission. With crypto, you address all 3 points. The money, you receive it almost immediately. The fees are minimal. And it's safe because it's in your phone. You're going to have access to it electronically, and then you can transfer it to your bank or to another. And that also is immediate. It doesn't take that long. The where you can transfer it and how you can use it does depend on the country you're in, but yes, absolutely, it just addresses so many things, and that's why people are kind of leaning into it. There's a company in Mexico called Bitso, and they're a crypto exchange, centralized crypto exchange platform, and they focused on remittances, and in the first 6 months of the year, they actually saw $1 billion in transactions because of remittances, and I think it's going to grow a lot.
Yeah, it's more people, because I think the majority of like la raza ahorita aquí en Estados Unidos maybe doesn't know about it yet, or it's still a little too complicated, or Mónica Talan's CryptoConexión hasn't reached them yet.
Exactly. There you go.
So ojalá y ese mensaje lo continuamos a patrocinar por todos lados. So clearly you're an expert in this field, and I love that you're continuing to study porque no siempre fuiste una experta. So let's go back to when your career started, and like what were the steps, because almost like nobody that we've interviewed so far said, I just graduated college, I'm going into tech. Everybody had like a very weird, interesting story, so I want to kind of hear yours.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Y para empezar, traes poquito frito porque nos trajeron unos zarapes.
Vamos a... Sí, ya me viste temblar un poquito. Los voy a poner en las piernas.
By the way,
que el restaurante nos dio.
I was like, Mexican restaurants that have an outdoor patio, this is a great like touch to add to your restaurant. Okay. So, ¿dónde fuiste a la escuela y ya de ahí dónde?
Bueno, les conté que nací en México. So I was born in Mexico City, and then when I was 10, my parents moved us to Laredo. And so we moved to Laredo, Texas, and I went to school there. I did part of elementary, middle school, high school, and then I came to Austin because I wanted to go to the University of Texas. I did do actually 1 year of community college in Laredo, and then I did 1 year of community college in Austin, and then I transferred to UT, and I actually graduated in 2 years. So I did the 4-year program through community college, and I think community colleges are a great entryway for people like me. Like I love doing the first 2 years, especially then going to UT.
Y te sale más barato en...
Sí, todo. Anyway, pero yo sí decidí desde un principio que quería estudiar relaciones públicas. So I'm one of those rare that studied PR and went into PR. My first job was in government, then I was at a PR agency called Flashman Hillard. And then I joined Univision, and I was able to help lead communications at Univision. But during that time, it's also when Web2 kind of got more sophisticated and like social media was born. And so I helped launch Univision's social media platform.
That's super cool. So when we were on the phone call, we did a prep call. I thought that was one of the coolest things, and like that people should know, is like, because you've been like one of the like founders, kind of trendsetters with the Latinos and social media, and you kind of help like the foundation for it. So do you remember what like the first post was?
I'll tell you 2 things. Actually, I'm going to tell you 3 because I have a really funny story of when we were teaching people within the company to use it. But the first is that when we started, the company at first was like, well, use it more for like business and for media. So do yours post in English. So we created our Facebook page and Twitter page, and we did our first post in English, y la comunidad nos mató. Pero ¿por qué en inglés? ¿Por qué no en español? So we switched immediately to Spanish, and we grew very quickly. But then we found that people on Twitter were actually engaging with us, and they wanted us to tweet in Spanish, but they would tweet to us in English. We have these kids that would like live tweet telenovelas, which we thought was hilarious, but in English, and they would interact and criticize the characters, and it was so much fun. So we realized that our strategy had to be very different, right, for Facebook versus Twitter, but we were in both, and we had a lot of fun. We actually, the first World Cup with Twitter, we were a part of it, and we did every game. We were like, they called us the Twitter producers because we would give feedback to the producers and say, hey, this is the feedback that the signal is wrong, or you said this wrong, and then we would respond on air. And so it was really a lot of fun. It was the one in South Africa.
Oh, wow. That's really, really cool. That's when Waka Waka came out, right? Yes.
So we had a lot of fun with it. We had a lot of fun. But it was really listening to our own community. And I think that's what we need to do. And that's why, you know, having worked at Univision and seeing the importance and the value, even for Latinos like us, like we're looking for content in Spanish that we can use with our parents, with our family, that connects us back to our countries. And so that foundation helped me a lot when I was thinking of CryptoConexión.
Escuché a alguien decir, I can't remember who it was, pero he said such a powerful like statement. Dice, cuando me hablas en inglés, me hablas a mi cerebro, pero cuando me hablas en español, me hablas al corazón. And I just like never gonna forget that, because you know, that's kind of what we want to do. Like we're mixing the Spanglish y todo así, and it's super important. So yeah, I mean, companies like Univision, pues sí, like they're part of that mainstream message. Y then you have a bunch of other smaller people like us, pero también entendemos esa parte de.
Claro, and you help connect, right? You're connecting culture, stories, and bringing Latinos like us to our community, because we don't see that as much, right?
Like, I mean, just highlighting you right now, like I always have this thing, like cuando yo estaba en la escuela, en la universidad, from the high school and university, si hubiera escuchado a una mujer mexicana entrar y escuchar tu español, that it was perfect Spanish. And then, but then also found out like, oh yeah, by the way, we're like launching social media at this major corporation, doing that. It would like radically change like what I thought like what I, that I can do, that I can achieve, because it's like, well, ahí está, like, y luego también para salir que eres de México y también, like, that, we need to celebrate more of those stories. So, I mean, again, I want to thank you so much for like being with us today, because this is really cool, and I hopefully it inspires a lot of people to, follow your lead into the Web3 space, and as you continue to learn as well. You use a term that's kind of interesting to define yourself. When we said, oh, so you're kind of Tex-Mex, you said, no, I am
Mex-Tex, porque soy más mexicana que tejana, but I have a little bit of both. Yo nací en la Ciudad de México. We were from the south side of the city, but my grandmother and family are from Coyoacán, so I spent a lot of time there. We lived actually close to El Estadio Azteca, so that's the area we used to live in, close to la Colonia Roma.
Have you been to a Juego de la Selección Mexicana like at the day?
Not, it's on my bucket list.
Okay, yeah, well, whenever you go, let me know, because I definitely want to do that. Y pues para los que no saben, Coyoacán es donde está la casa de Frida Kahlo también, because obviously she's globally famous, so that's good. Have you been there, right?
I have been. Okay. Los dos, ¿no? La casa de Diego Rivera y Frida está ahí. There's a museum, there's several museums. It's beautiful.
In the past, in your family line, did anybody interact with them?
Actually, yes, my grandfather, because he lived in that neighborhood when they lived there, and so yes, they interacted with them. How much I don't know, but they did know them. Yeah.
Does your family have any secret art?
No, I wish. We would have already found it, but no. So we're.
That's super cool.
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite neighborhoods, because Coyoacán has a great placita where you can go, and there's a mercado. There's a lot of art. There's great restaurants. There's also like Sanborns, which is like a chain in Mexico, but it's one of my favorite. They have the best chilaquiles.
La placita también que venden todos los artistas. We have a couple of pieces actually in our house from them. It's really cool to know, like, actually know the artist, and I follow them on Instagram. I'll give them a shout out later, but that's really cool.
They also have great ice cream there. Las paletas de limón, las mejores.
Si alguien no ha visitado la Ciudad de México, do you have like what you can do in one day? What would you do? You're perfect. Or like tu día perfecto in Mexico City looks like?
Bueno, despertarme, irme a tomar unos chilaquiles ricos en Sanborns allá en Coyoacán, y después salirme de Sanborns e irme y tomar un cafecito en uno de los coffee shops ahí en el
y obviamente un café de olla, ¿verdad?
Claro, café de olla, claro.
Que para los que no saben qué es, porque hay muchos cafés en Latinoamérica.
Café con canela y sabe bien rico.
Y te lo tienen que servir como en un narrito, porque si we went to like a fancy one time, and they gave me like a fancy cup, and I'm like, it tastes good, but like I need the barro, like.
Sí, tiene que tener, le da un poquito de diferente sabor.
100%. Okay, sales de breakfast y ahora qué?
Then I go to walk around in one of the neighborhoods, San Angel, which has a lot of the flower shops, and it's just beautiful. And then I take the subway to not take the cab, because then I would never make it, to go downtown and walk around and see la Catedral, and all of that, and then call one of my foodie friends and say what's the best restaurant for dinner, and go have a good authentic Mexican food. Yeah.
That's
But
awesome.
of course, in between for lunch, unos taquitos de algún puesto.
Sí. Y me acuerdo ahorita que dices restaurantes, me acuerdo de que una vez, like here, everybody's used to calling it Mexican Coke, right? Like, give me Mexican food, give me a Mexican Coke, and you get the tall glass that the Coke comes with. Sí, pero según también es como better because it's de caña. I mean, both sugars are probably not the best, but we were like, oh, this one's more natural or something. Yeah. But I remember one time, me and my sister were in Mexico, and she ordered, me trae una Coca mexicana. And then the lady's kind of like, ¿qué? And it's like, I was like, hey sis, I was like, we're in Mexico, like, todas las cocas son mexicanas.
And then one of my favorite things to do, and whenever I can, I do it, is go to el Palacio
de las Bellas Artes.
De Bellas Artes and see el ballet folclórico there.
Everybody in the world has to do that.
It's incredible.
I totally agree with you. Yeah. We saw it once, and desde el momento que empezó, like, there's so many emotional parts of it, but then also it takes you on a tour of Mexico.
Yeah.
Because you think it's just like, I mean, my family's from cerquitas de Guadalajara, so yes, el jaripeo, el mariachi and all, los charros and zapateado, classic, but to learn about like Veracruz, to learn about all the different parts of it, and even back in history too.
Right. I think a lot of people don't know that each state has their own traditional dance, and the dresses are different, the dance is different. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, México también tiene sus propios acentos, ¿verdad?
A mí me sale más el acento de Monterrey, del norte de México, pero también me preguntan mucho que si soy de Colombia.
The 23rd Latino. I think you're interacting with, especially in your specific line with CryptoConexión, que tienes a todos estos países de Latinoamérica, porque me están pasando a mí. Yo he notado que cuando estoy hablando español me está cambiando un poquito el acento porque estoy hablando con colombianos, venezolanos, de Paraguay, de Perú y todo. You're doing the exact same thing. Eso te está cambiando tu acento un poco. Hablando de los países, because that's actually something really cool that you're doing. What are some of the countries that you're working with right now? Later we'll show the CryptoConexión page, but what are some of your favorite partners that you have right now? Because I know you're doing some incredible work, and I want to kind of allow you some time to shout them out.
Thank you. So this year we launched an initiative called Wagmila LatAm, and Wagmi means we're all going to make it. And so it's to onboard 5 million Latinas in the US and Latin America to Web3.
Hell yeah, 5 million Latinas into Web3. Okay.
By 2030, and we have partners from all over, but the ones that are more active in Mexico, well, HerDAO LatAm helped us launch it, and the group that helped us is in Mexico City.
Gotcha.
And then we have a great partner in Colombia called Disruptors, and it's 2 lawyers who are Web3 focused, and they're helping companies enter into Web3 as lawyers. So they launched their own startup to help understand smart contracts, understand the technology and what it means for companies, because it can be complicated.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And then we have in Peru CryptoCuriosas, we have Crypto. It's one of the DAO, Crypto Women DAO, out of Argentina, Buenos Aires. We have another group out of Educar Plus, out of Sao Paulo.
Necesitamos que conectar más, and like I know right now we're focused, like even TECH23, we're focused here in the US, but like we're counting on all of our partners in Latin America. So I'm glad we're connected because you can make the little introduction for us y pues seguir ayudando a toda la gente. If somebody is a Latina, y no importa si sabes inglés o español, but you want to get into the Web3 space, how do they do it?
You know, well, if you're a woman, you have to join Wagmila LatAm, and to join Wagmila LatAm and be a part of the 5 million women that enter Web3, visit CryptoConexión. You'll find information there. You can also email us at info@cryptoconexion.com.
I just want to highlight you también. Tienes tu propio libro. I'm gonna put it up to the camera. This is your first published book. You are a published author.
Yeah.
That's awesome right there. The first one's always really special, so nos regaló una copia. So thank you so much. Tell us a little bit more about the book then.
Yeah, you know, when we started to talk about how different people learn, and we have our head of education actually is in Madrid, so we were talking about, you know, some people use audio, some people read, some people like to touch. We're like, let's create a book.
Yeah.
And so that's when we started to brainstorm, but instead of just creating a book, it tells my story, right? Like the first time I heard about Bitcoin was actually at a Christmas in Mexico with my sister, and we both were like, vamos a ir a invertir en Bitcoin, and then we didn't do anything, right? Because life happened. And so it was during the pandemic that I started to study and decided to bring. So it's really a little bit of my story, and then how I got introduced, and then it explains different concepts. It has a glossary at the end also to help you kind of navigate and understand this world. And for me, it's like a workbook that you can use and look up terms and look up.
Estoy viendo cosas como la historia del dinero, una mirada a la criptografía, blockchain, Bitcoin y criptomonedas, carteras, alternate altcoins y stablecoins. So, sí. This is awesome. Y si no lo mencionamos ya, está en español.
Sí, y está en Amazon. Si lo quieren buscar, lo pueden buscar en Amazon.
So, gracias por crear recursos para la gente latina. Por eso, I know, like you said, you're blockchain, but I consider you an edtech platform because you're educating a whole lot of people que no hay mucho contenido. Y ojalá pues que that, you know, you're an artist in this space, that people copy you, right? That people continue to share the message more and more, y cada quien dale su propio spin para aprender. And yeah, so just thank you so much for like sharing about Web3 to the world, to Latin America.
Thank you. And you know what's interesting? So you talk about how we have La Historia del Dinero in the book. That is our #1 most read piece of content on our website.
La Historia del Dinero.
La Historia del Dinero, because people want to learn. Also, another point, we talk about Latin America, but Latinos over-index in crypto in the US. People have to understand that we're using crypto. And so we need to be a part of the conversation, and we need to be a part of building the projects that are happening on blockchain.
Amén, 100 veces. we always like to say that like Latinos were huge consumers of tech, but consumimos Netflix, Amazon, Google, like we use all these massive platforms. We're not big creators of it. So I'm glad I'm talking to a creator. We're creating this platform. So pónganse a crear más y más. We have a Latina in tech that is not a coder, right?
Right, I'm not a coder. Yeah. I don't speak that language, any of those languages, porque hay varias.
Sí. Pero de todos modos tienes una plataforma de tech. So how is the website designed, CryptoConexión and everything then?
Yeah, so the coding and all that part is done with a team that I have in Mexico, and it's an agency out of there that I knew from before. The content that's written, it's a great team. We have our editor, Andres, who's in Mexico, and then we have reporters that cover, like they give us 1 or 2 pieces of content a month. We have somebody in New York, Colombiana. We have somebody in Buenos Aires. We have 2 people in Buenos Aires. And then we also have somebody that does our video content, our YouTube content. He's out of New York, and he's Puerto Rican.
I love
so it's a super diverse team.
Y pues sí, ¿verdad? Like what we've noticed, if you will become a non-tech founder, es simplemente de reunir la gente que sí sabe y tú nomás mantén las ideas, la visión y pues el liderazgo, ¿verdad? Para poder sacar el equipo adelante. Okay, Mónica, so ya para terminar, si alguien se quiere meter a este espacio, I know we talked about your website, some of the books, but if somebody doesn't know you exist, what other ways are there? What advice would you give somebody that wants to come into this platform, into Web3, and learn about all these different things?
One of the best platforms out there right now to learn about Web3 is LinkedIn. There's so many experts, there's so much content. Okay. You can do Web3 search and start to look for individuals that post. There's really, really great content. And you need to start reading, do Google searches about Web3, start looking at some of the trade publications. Blockworks is one that I read a lot. Start signing up for the newsletters. And there's great communities like Crypto Tech Women is one that I mentioned. They have great educational content on there. Surge is another one. And they also have great content. It's also a Latina creator platform. Crypto Tech Women, also a Latina. So I'm all about promoting our Latina projects.
También nosotros.
But the other thing is to start doing, right? So, for example, many people are like, the Metaverse, what's the Metaverse? It's like Decentraland is a platform. You can join us as a guest and start exploring and looking and playing, and then you start learning. Open up a wallet. MetaMask is a great platform where you can open a wallet without any money and start looking at how you can use a wallet. Unstoppable Domains is another great platform that they have great educational content. And you can get your own domain as an NFT.
Interesting.
Lots to learn.
Yes, hay mucho que aprender.
Sí.
Bueno, pues muchas gracias por eso. What I heard from everything you just said is it's like stay curious, curious. Y es algo que yo creo que me acuerdo cuando si hacías muchas preguntas de niño, ¿y por qué esto? We had this inner child that really just wanted to know how everything worked, but it kind of got quieted, right? Ya para de preguntarme lo que sea. So, es tiempo de preguntar de nuevo, de aprender. Si estás curioso de algo, no hay razón por qué ahorita ya no podemos aprender de cualquier cosa. So, si de algo tienes curiosidad, métete 100%. Hay muchos recursos, como dijo Mónica. Y bueno, pues Mónica, te quiero dar muchas gracias por estar aquí. Hoy fue un episodio muy especial porque el mundo de Web3 es muy nuevo para mí también y pues para el resto de Latinoamérica. Pero tú eres una experta. People follow Mónica. Y pues, again, not to be biased or anything, but we got to eat Mexican food today and represent Mexico in a Mexican-owned place, actually from City of Mexico. So, si un día están en Austin, vengan a visitar a Lichas también. Muy rica comida. Ahorita vamos a terminar de comer y a ver si nos recalentan otra vez la quesadilla que se nos enfrió un poquito. Pero, Mónica, ¿qué mensaje ahora le tienes como despedida para el resto de Latinoamérica?
Me encantó el tuyo. Siempre hay que tener esa curiosidad, querer aprender. Yo te digo que yo a través de mi carrera todos los años invertía yo y continúo invirtiendo en aprender algo, sea a través de un libro, un curso, YouTube. Yo, imagínate, también tomé un curso de Artificial Intelligence because I wanted to learn. I was like, I need to understand this technology and what it would mean for me as a communicator and tie it back to your field. And it's so much fun. You get to meet amazing people like you guys. So I'm grateful that I can do this and meet people that inspire me. So it's so stay curious.
Sí, quédense curiosos.